Shocking scams everyone should know about. Cassie and Robert were so thrilled that all their hard work finally paid off. They were now proud homeowners. They bought a for sale by owner home in cash with their life savings after 15 years of saving every dime they could by working overtime. They wanted to save money by not using a title agency or attorney because that money could be used on other things they needed instead. Soon after they got settled in, they began receiving strange phone calls telling them that their mortgage is delinquent, and then more threatening calls to foreclose on their home. They repeatedly replied, "No, you have the wrong people. We paid cash for a home and we don't even have a mortgage." The lender then explained that the mortgage that the previous homeowner took against the property was never paid, and it's attached to the property, not to the sellers. The previous year of property taxes were never paid either. They soon learned that their new home had 2 existing liens on it that were now their responsibility to pay in full. How could this be? The sellers seemed so nice and trusting. So they had a choice to make. Either foreclose and lose their life savings and ruin their good credit rating, or pay someone else's mortgage for the next 30 years to keep the home. A lot of hard work to save the money to buy this home, and now the dream come true is now gone forever. They learned the hard way to never skip the title search. It's well worth the $250 cost. Sadly, they lost their life savings, and no one could help them do anything about it. Another very common scam is that you see a home that is an incredible great buy, and you want to get it under contract quickly before the seller realizes that they're selling under market value. So you meet with the seller as quickly as possible to sign the purchase agreement and give the deposit to him to get the home under contract so no one else can buy it. Then you celebrate your big score, only to learn that after you gave the seller the $5,000 good faith deposit so he would stop showing the home to other people, the seller disappeared because he or she was an imposter that never even owned the home. The ad for the home sale disappeared online, the cell number was disconnected, and he was never to be found again. The deposit scam is so common. Whenever I see a home listed for sale or rent by owner that's way underpriced, I investigate it myself on the tax records to see if the seller is the owner or a relative of the owner. I would call the actual homeowner myself, only to hear that the home was never listed for sale and the scammer found old photos of the previous sale online and used them. Many times I tipped the police off on homes that were fake sales, and they were grateful to save people from falling victim to the deposit scam. Another scam that's very common. You hire the best law firm for your home purchase, and you think you're safe, but their computer gets hacked. The computer hacker can see which of the attorney's clients are scheduled to close next week by browsing through his emails and files. After breaking through his server electronically, the hacker then creates a fake email account using an email address that looks similar to the attorney's email address. The hacker clones the attorney's emails, exact wording from past clients, and you receive an email with attached wiring instructions to wire your closing funds the day before closing. Because the lawyer's photo and logo are on it, no one examines the email address close enough to notice that the number 1 in the email address is really an L, a small L that looks like a number 1. You bring the printed out wiring instructions to your bank. Because the hacker used the attorney's email exact wording from past clients, but only changed the wiring instructions, it appears legitimate, and your banker wires the money to the hacker unknowingly. Typically, this is a very large amount of money, a 20% down payment and closing costs. The next day, the buyers show up for their scheduled closing, and the attorney says, "We didn't receive the wire yet, so we can't close." That money is gone forever. The closing obviously cannot happen now. On top of the 100,000 plus lost, the buyer also loses his 10,000 good faith deposit because of breach of contract with the seller on top of that. Never wire money unless you verify the wiring instructions in person at the attorney's office. The reason wire scammers are untraceable is because after the wire is sent, they intercept the transmission and tell Western Union to reroute the wire to a different address, typically to another country. They can reroute a wire so many times to make it untraceable. Identity theft. Yes, pun intended. One victim told me she had to fly across the country to go to a plastic surgeon's office in Vegas and remove her clothes to show the doctor her breasts, to prove to him that she did not have breast implant surgery and that the mystery woman who did stole her identity. The doctor physically examined her breasts and realized that they were natural. He apologized and canceled the debt when he realized it was identity theft. The proof was clear, but the rest of the stolen credit for merchandise in her name was not so easy to prove and may never be resolved. This is why you never give your Social Security number out to anyone on the phone. Work from home jobs. You accept a job working from your home computer from an employment ad. The employer needs to send you their proprietary phone and modem equipment to ensure proper encryption and security of their customer information. They ask you to submit a security deposit to be sure that you return the equipment to get your deposit back if you should leave the job. You send them the 200 or 300-day request, but your equipment never arrives, and your person of contact disappears too. Beware of overpayments. So you're selling an item for $100 and the buyer is paying you by personal check. The buyer arrives and pulls out a check and says, "Oh my gosh, my husband accidentally made the check out for $150 instead of $100. Could you possibly give me change?" You say, "Sure, no problem." Then you give the extra $50 back to the buyer in cash. Then you deposit the $150 check in your bank account. Your bank notifies you 4 days later that the check was counterfeit, and they're charging you $35 for depositing a bad check. You lose the $100 item plus the $50 in cash you gave to the scammer, and now you have to pay $35 in bank fees for depositing a bad check on top of that. So there's a loss of $185, and it ruins your day too. Another common scam. You see the cutest puppy online for sale and you just have to have it, but it's out of state. The seller offers to send the puppy by airplane where you can pick it up at the airport. You wire the seller $800 for a $5,000 breed, and the seller gives you the flight information so you can pick the puppy up at the airport. You anxiously wait for the flight to arrive so you can hold your new puppy for the first time. But sadly, that flight arrives and you are told there is no puppy on board. An old neighbor of mine was chatting with a woman online who complained that her husband was abusing her and that she needed to leave him, but she was afraid of him. He felt so bad for her. He told me the whole dramatic story and how beautiful she was in her photos, being an ex-pageant contestant and all. I told him that it was probably a scam, but he was so lonely that he wanted so badly for it to be true. So he didn't listen to any logic. And he tried to convince me that because they chatted for weeks and he knows her very well. So he wired the money anyway and had to learn the hard way when she didn't show up at the airport. Scammers are getting so good at their game. They know exactly who they can play and what to say to tug at their heartstrings. So you have to be aware of the little clues along the way. On the phone, the foreign accent gives a clue, but chatting in text online, you can also find little clues like misspelled words or misused grammar because they're really in a foreign country and it's a second language to them, while they claim to be a local. Never allow yourself to get saturated into their sob story. I once had someone try to get me to wire money online, claiming he was about to commit suicide because he lost his job and couldn't feed his family. I offered to help him if he gave me more information to prove his story is true, but he refused. I get targeted on Facebook by handsome professional gentlemen that are surgeons, pilots, army captains. They use photos they find online of other men to catfish women all the time. I just laugh at them and block them. I had 3 orthopedic surgeons text me in 1 week. Finally, I wrote happily married on my Facebook profile and the catfishing stopped. Most people on Facebook already know they are fakers in foreign countries targeting lonely women that want to believe they're real. But it's very sad for the few that have to learn the hard way. They have a fantasy in their minds, but the reality is typically a call center in Nigeria. May the little ones have a better future because we cared enough to share. If you know of any scams going on now, please post them in the comments below to help others. Thank you so much, and be sure to subscribe for follow-up.